Welcome back. Now, we promised you a special interview in the last segment of our show today. And my, oh my, do we have not another special, interviewee to speak to, and someone who's contributed to the game as an international, also as a pundit, and now as a coach. That, of course, is South African legend Bradley Carnell, joining us all the way from the US. Bradley, thank you so much for your time. And in the interest of moving things along quite quickly, how is life treating you out in the US these days?
Yeah, Caesar, thanks for having me, man. It's so good to hear your voice again. Obviously working with you back in the day at Super Sport in 2010. So the click, click, bang, I always remind myself of the click, click, bang, so it's great to hear your voice, and you're a legend in the making, or already a legend. So, but man, thanks for having me. It's been great. And listen, life in America is good. There's been a couple of changes to my day-to-day recently, but we'll manage those and let time and reflection take its course. And I'm looking forward to some challenges that happen in the near future. But so far, life is good. My family are, two girls. One is in college. One is a junior in high school, which means 2 more years to go. So, it's just life as per usual, as a real dad now, so I can focus on time with family and do a lot of things that I haven't been able to do for so many years. It's been 2012 since, I took over the role as a coach at the University of Johannesburg, and where I could really cut my teeth into coaching and really see if I really wanted to do this. And in 12 years now, being at the grind every single day through different avenues, through different exposures, through different levels, so maybe this is a well-earned break.
Now, Brad, looking back at your career, as a player, it goes back a long time. I mean, you turned professional as a teenager and made some heavy moves as a teenager. Before long, you were already playing in Europe, and here you are now, like you say, since 2012. I remember those varsity football days when you were down to UJ. The transition, though, from playing for so many years, from such a long time ago, yes, you spent some time in punditry where we all worked together, but the transition to coaching, how have you found it since 2012 and so on?
Yeah, I never actually wanted to get into coaching, Caesar. I just had a career, and towards the end of my career, I was like, you get treated in a certain way and you get handled in a certain way, and then you wanted nothing to do with it. So for me, I was like happy to retire, and then I spent a year just to think about my next moves and to think about what the game has given me and how can I give that back to somebody else. So rather than being greedy and to say I've had enough now, I'm done, I was really excited and curious to see if I could affect change and affect people's lives in the way that my life had been affected, by people who cared about me and people who nurtured me. So, this was one of the main steps and motivations for me to become a coach. And, my best experiences, or I've had many great experiences now over the 12 years of coaching. But it has to start somewhere, and those experiences with UJ will never leave my side, because those were so enriching and empowering, just to see what you can do for other people, and it costs you nothing. It costs you nothing. Just investing in people, investing in what they do, nurturing their talent. It's cost me nothing. So I feel like I don't work a day in my life here. I just love to do what I do and helping people out. So it's a big challenge for sure. There's pressures, and for sure. But I'm always curious about what's around the corner. I've always been somehow brave and independent to go and get the next thing, and to challenge myself to go one step better. So the journey and where I'm coaching, and that I don't even really look at it like that. I just look at going day to day.
Well, you've had an interesting time in your time with St. Louis City. Also, would you give us some background in how you get to St. Louis City? And also, for those that aren't in the know, your first season with them, I believe it was special. Give us some insight on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, St. Louis City came around, obviously, when you're coaching in a certain style in this league, and there's an expansion team every couple of years. Obviously, they're looking to play in a certain direction, a certain style, and lo and behold, it's a very European, highly energized style of play. So Ralph Rangnick was the initiator, of this pressing style of soccer. or football. And then, the sporting director at St. Louis City gave me a call. He knows exactly how I play. He knows the philosophy. He knew exactly, because of my time as an interim coach at the New York Red Bulls, we had a 14 or a 15 game stint. We got them into the playoffs, so my staff and the players did a great job making the playoffs, and that was a real big stamp for me. It's a big statement for me as a coach to make the playoffs with a team that was historically a playoff team and was in big danger of not getting into the playoffs. So for me that was massive, and that kind of put me on the map here in the MLS. And then when this team got set up in 2022, I joined a year early. Just to get the identity, build the culture, build the philosophy. There were some academy teams up and running, so you could almost work on your style of play or your philosophy behind the scenes, and no one's really watching. So you could operate in the background, and you could see what works, what doesn't work, and based on your experiences as an interim, now it's on you. You're the head coach. And 2022, the inaugural season of the Next Pro, which is like a second tier league. We won that conference, and we went all the way to the final. We lost in the final against Columbus, but that was a massive, big statement as well. And then in 2023, we hit the ground running. We went 5-0, the very first expansion team to get that, the very first expansion team to get to 25 points, the very first expansion team to get 17 wins in this season. So no ever other team. You think about all the great teams here and all the great franchises over all the different sporting codes. No team has ever won a regular season conference as an expansion team, and we did that. So that was massive. So whatever we've done and whatever's happened since, no one will ever be able to take that away. We made that possible. We created value for players who teams had given up on them. Players had given up on themselves. So we were able to galvanize and get all these guys together and focus on one motive, and that's to be the best version of themselves and to be the best version for the city of St. Louis, that has a very rich soccer history that I've gone on to learn and to know about now. So it was a storyboard in and on its own, and unfortunate the way it ended.
I'm glad. I think you're the perfect person to ask this question that I'm going to ask next. For someone who's as well traveled as you are in the world of football, the current state of football in the US. Some may say for a youngster that's looking to make a name for himself, let's say from South Africa, moving to the US may not be a great place to go. Is it a great place to go? What is the current state of football and standard of football in the US for a youngster that's looking to make a name for himself?
Yeah, I think the league has always been seen as a retirement league, and that's always been the biggest problem and the biggest staple and the biggest stigma around the league. But if you look at the selling power of the MLS now, and if you just think of Alphonso Davies, Tyler Adams, there's been these type of players, that have gone on to do great things in Europe. So it's changing its tag now to a selling league, and the rules are always changing. That you can now acquire young U22 initiative players, which means you can go out and spend a hell of a ton of money to acquire these high talents, and it doesn't really go on your roster cap. So, so there's a lot of different rules that are changing now to attract younger, dynamic players, high talent players with big ceilings for sell-on values. So, these mechanisms that are in place now, would almost entice. And I look at now Bongi Hlongwane, from Minnesota United. This kid's on a rampage. He's doing so well, and he's just galvanized with the team. And you can see he's a really great character. And whenever you chat to him or whenever you speak to teammates, or you just watch his daily dealings and the way he plays and expresses himself, it brings a joy to us. So, and then you're really proud to be a countryman of his, because he's doing a great job away from home, and it's not the easiest thing to do your job away from home. Life is always very good in Johannesburg, or in South Africa. For me, there's so many things you miss on a day-to-day level, and then when you see other people succeeding and doing really well, you're really happy for them, because it's a big step forwards.
Now, you also got to, I think, rub shoulders with another young South African who's returned to Kaizer Chiefs, Jabulo Blom. Left here, a youngster that, looked quite thin and he's come back and he's muscled up and he's looking the business physically. He's looking as though he's really gained quite a lot physically in his time out in the States. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the American League is a very physical league. If you have some players who are, European stars, and they come here and they experience what this league is about, it's if you just think of the American athlete, and that's what it is, and now you translate that to the game, I think within our game model and our game idea, the athlete, the physical presence, the way we apply our soccer. Or our game principles, you need to have that presence about you, and Jubbs was instrumental for us in that first year, man. He did such a great job. He has a sixth sense of when the ball's going to bounce away from the opponent, and he has like cat-like tendencies to jump and be on the press and on the counter press. So, he did really well, and we're so happy with his development. And obviously we get going into 2024, and then there's different expectations, different things happening, and maybe I don't know whether boardroom decisions or decisions on the field or what have you, but Jubbs, I think I got let go first, and then Jubbs left, or I think he had joined Chiefs back in July or August, if I'm not mistaken. So, but man, it was great working with him, and it was awesome seeing his progress over the time, and it just to show that it can be done. It can be done. You go out of your comfort zone and be part of a team, and just to see the growth in individuals for me was incredible.
You mentioned your time partying with the St. Louis, and I wanted to touch on that from a coaching point of view. I mean, as a player, as a young player, I remember talking to you long ago about arriving in Europe and what you expected. Well, obviously, you're single then, and you're moving around freely. Now it's different. You're a coach, and you've got a family. And I'd like to think you settled in St. Louis. As we were speaking to you off air, you mentioned it's a better family place to be in. What's it like now in your career at a point where once you move jobs from one place to another, it also, of course, means the family coming along with you. How different is it from your early days arriving in Europe as a player who was a youngster and having to move from club to club didn't mean so much to other people's lives?
Yeah, listen, you have obligations, not just to yourself, but to your team and to your family. So, you have to like split yourself up into three and make sure channeling time for each department accordingly, right? So, because if you just go full tilt on one aspect, you're going to fail in the other two. And, I'm a proud man who believes I can do all three. It's never easy now. And if you look at the life of a coach or as a player, you just pack your bags and off you go. You know what I mean? Like even if you have baggage, you are usually the sole dependent, and you're up and you're off with your young family or your wife, and you have no kids. And these experiences are great. I did it myself as a player. So, I didn't venture too many teams, in 18 years, I think I had 4 or 5 teams. So, that wasn't too bad in terms of the travel, but, I'm really proud of my family, because met my wife and my kids were born in Germany, and then we moved back to South Africa, and then we moved to America. So 3 different continents, 3 different cultures, 3 different, I would say, time zones, languages, German, English. My wife couldn't speak English when we met. So, there are just so many things that where we are now, and you look 20 years down the line, and so far this journey has dragged us in many different areas, but we're also grateful for the opportunities. And we really settled in St. Louis. St. Louis is eerily similar to Johannesburg, in my opinion. There's so many things about the town that I love, and the friendly people, and just the family nature of this town. It's incredible. And sports fanatics, they have the Cardinals, you have the St. Louis Blues, so there's so many traditional teams within and around this area. It really reminds me of back home. So I don't leave here thinking that I'm missing home. I feel like, yes, St. Louis is part of my home, but with the history of where I've been and what I've done. So there's a lot of things that keeping us here to St. Louis, but we have a home here. We feel settled. I have a daughter in high school here, and my other daughter's in a second year college in Kansas, which is just a neighboring town, just across the city. So, family is very important for me. the life as a coach has certain roads, and it has ups and downs and peaks and valleys, and it's just a trail and a journey you have to run as a coach, and it's limited, right? I mean, you have to know who you're getting to bed with. It's limited, and we all have the pipe dream of the Alex Fergusons, but it's never going to be like that. So the modern game has developed in such a way, and even the league here has developed in such a way, like if you're not competing for playoffs, if you've had a couple of losses on the bump, you're going to be in question. So I think that's just the nature of the beast that we're all living in these days. It's so rewarding in so many aspects, but then it's like so cold-hearted in many other aspects as well.
Well, here in South Africa, we can now add you to a new list that's now growing and developing from a South African point of view, and that's coaches working abroad. I mean, we can add Pito to the list along with you, Rulani, Fadlu, and that number seems to be growing of coaches that are now going to go work abroad, whether it be North Africa, out in the UAE, or in this case, in America. How does that work for South African football? How does that translate to the future of South African football now that we've got players going abroad and coaches also applying their trade abroad as well?
Yeah, I think if you could achieve it as a player, and we had some great players crossing boundaries and crossing borders, right? So I don't see why there should be any stumbling blocks as a coach. I think it's just about investment. And the biggest thing that I've learned as a coach is like you never have it figured out. So you have to be committed to learning the next step, to going the next. Just to keep on going one more step further in your personal development, right? So there's a lot of things there that previously, I don't know, in South Africa we thought, South Africa is South Africa, and we're going to just live and work and be part of the culture in South Africa. But being able to expand and be brave enough to expand, and I think the modern player, the modern coach, I think there's a lot of positivity coming out of there, and then it starts with success as well. I mean, Pizzo has been so successful, and if you look at what he's done for the coaches, and he's inspired all of us to go and do great things, and almost like release the shackles and said, hey, it's possible, so these were some of the things for me, like, it is possible, and South Africans can be taken seriously as coaches in the world of soccer. So and you see that happening all the time. You see, I think the development of the game has progressed immensely, and it's a very tech savvy world is the game of soccer, and you have a lot of capabilities at your hand now, just with internet and self-exploration. Like, you just go and explore. You can get in the internet, you can spend hours and days just defining and refining your craft. I mean, that'll give you the tools, but now do you have the tools to go and implement it? That's always the biggest thing. And do you believe in what you're doing? So for me, it's about finding a product, and this is what I always said, it's no use working for a club, for a team, for a coach, if you're an assistant, if you don't believe in what you're doing. If you don't wake up every day and you don't feel that style of play suits you and speaks to you as a person, then you shouldn't be doing it, because you're never going to be able to do it 100%. So if you wake up every single day knowing that when you wake up, like I've been fortunate to play for coaches, to coach with coaches, we all had a similar idea. We all were, a little bit sort of, I would say, obsessed with this against the ball, pressing, hunting, this transitional type of soccer game that inspires me and wants me to coach in this way. So and now all the time you adapt the tools and you acquire the skills to go and implement these game models, and it becomes part of your DNA. Every single day I'm trying to beat my wife at ping pong, or I'm very competitive in what I do, right? So and that's what you try and instill with your players, because the body language you give to your players is the body language that they're going to put out on the field, right? So and it all starts with you. You're the role model, you are the bus driver, you are the cook, you are the face of the team. Every single day you have to be online. So there's no down days as a coach. You can't get up and have a bad day, because you have to be on the money all the time.
Now it's an interesting time we find ourselves in South African football. We don't have too many players playing in the best in the top leagues out in Europe, but we've just done them all at an AFCON. We're looking at possibly qualifying for another AFCON or World Cup in the next big tournaments that are coming up. But we've got an interesting mix of players and, like I say, coaches as well, that the culture is in a very interesting space. And I don't know what you make of it, where we are now able to compete to a point where we get to the semi-finals of an AFCON, yet when you look at South Africa, you don't see too many names in clubs in Spain or England or Germany, for that matter, like it was back in your day. But there seems to be some growth still. How would you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always the club versus country. So if you have guys that are playing in the same country, and if you have guys that are predominantly from South Africa and playing their trade there, what you can, the outcome of that is, or the benefit of that is, they're all local, they're playing together, they see each other all the time, and they can interact, and they know what's expected, they're playing in the same league. So, they're at similar levels in terms of maybe fitness, maybe point of the season, maybe time of the year, maybe weather, maybe there's so many things that galvanize and help you. If you have a bunch of stars, that play now in 6, 7, 8 different countries, come home every other 4 or 5 months or 3 months or what have you, and now all of a sudden, on the drop of a dime, you have to now perform, right? So without that harmony, without that galvanization, without that synchronization of being together all the time. So, listen, the music does play in Europe for sure, but if you have a team, that you get galvanized, you get together, there's no saying that team can't be successful as well, and you've seen it. So, I mean, we've had a great run recently as a country, and things are really trending in the right way. So, which means, sponsors are taking it seriously, development's been taken seriously. There's so many things that have been taken seriously, and I think the game, even when I got back to South Africa in 2010, I was like, wow, you don't have to leave the country anymore to make a good living, to make a decent living, so and that's a big thing too, because financial status is important, but status in general, for many people is important, right? So, if you go somewhere where you're not known and you're a nobody, and it's snowing and it's minus 18 Celsius, and, life is not so easy then, you might have a good paycheck, but you might not be happy. So, if you can live the best of both and represent your country, and everyone's doing the same thing for the benefit of the country, and, ultimately bettering their life of their families, and I think that's a big thing too. So, I don't think we'll ever get away from, where it's better to play and perform as a country and bring individuals, and I just think there's current crops, or there's certain I would say cycles of the lifestyle of a pro. There's cycles of style of play, and if you get that cycle with a certain type of player, with a certain type of style, and a coach who implements it, I think great things can be achieved, whether you're playing all in the PSL or you're playing all abroad. I think success can be happening on both fronts.
Well, Brad, have to keep time in mind, and have to ask you this before I let you go. Any future plans that you are aware of for the time being, or are you just coasting for now, just taking it easy for now?
Sorry, I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear this.
Any future plans? Any future plans within football?
Yeah, listen, I mean, like I said, there's a couple, there's 4 or 5 games now left, and then all the teams go into the playoffs, I've invested a lot of time and energy here in the US. I'm really excited about what's happening next, and hopefully those discussions start sort of maturing over the next couple of weeks, and then I'll know more. Long term, you never know where this road takes you as a coach. I mean, eventually when the kids are out of school and the kids are done studying and they have their lives done, and they're on the road, and my wife and I, we can just pick up and go at any point. Who knows? Maybe we could come back to South Africa. Who knows where the road takes us? If it's back to Germany, I don't know. But I'm excited about what's next, and there's a lot of things right now that I'm investing into in America, and for the foreseeable future, I see things playing out here in a certain way. But you can never be sure with this game, man. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. So listen, it's exciting times ahead. It's something I had to get to know as a coach. I've never been fired, which was an interesting one. I was actually speaking to Jesse Marsh, the head coach of the Canadian national team. I did some volunteer work for them in the last camp, and he was like, "You're never a coach until you get fired, you know. Now you're a real coach, you know." So I finally graduated into real coaching. So yeah, listen, that's what it is.
I'm glad to officially call you a coach now that you have been fired, and wish you the very best in the near future and going forward beyond that. And I also would like to thank you not only for your time now here today, but also your time that you've given to the beautifully South African game over the years as a player, as a coach, also contributing to the varsity football scene, which is huge now here in South Africa. You were there in the early stages, and also now looking to see what you could do as a coach. But thank you so much for your time in football and here on GameON.
Thanks, Israel. Not stopping anytime soon, man.
Always a pleasure, Ben.
Thank you.